Hi, this is Kat. We are here for a new topic and creative conversation. This is a potent time in the world, and much is unsettled. And yet, there's always this opportunity to connect to the self in the context of how I want to live my life, how I want to step into the world, where I want to participate. And I think most of the time, I recognize that no matter what I'm doing, I'm influencing others. And so too are you. We have a circle of influence, even if you feel very isolated or quite separated from others. There is a vibration of what you hold within your life that influences others, that makes a difference in the world. And I truly believe that we're always able to embark on this journey that I call the journey of evolutionary growth. And it's an invitation to align your life to a different kind of path and purpose. It has a more psycho-spiritual context, perhaps. It has definitely an archetypal influence because um, you can almost define the sense of the human self in where you feel tethered to something that has held you for a long time, often a story or an experience. And I never say story to be disingenuous. I say story because it encapsulates the bigger effect of where we remember things, are influenced by experiences, are even traumatized and holding pain inside our life that feels like we're wrapped in the roots that hold us down, or that the roots of those stories and experiences trip us up. And I call those root stories, places where we have unresolved material that is impacting us. Some of us work with shadow, and the language of shadow can be that too, where we're held in place or trapped in a space where we really can't get free from something. But if we start to explore those stories that are holding us back and we look at them as being tripped up by those root stories that won't let go, it takes on a bit of a different energy, doesn't it? And where we are connected to the past or wrapped in the roots of a story that won't release us, we have to actually go back to the past to give ourselves more opportunity to know that which is impacting us. We have to move into the center of the story in order to release its power over us. So that which is a root story doesn't necessarily feel empowering. It feels maybe diminishing or erodes our sense of potential. But when we are rooted in the center of our life, when we have established a stronger sense of self and released those root stories that have trapped us, we can start to rise inside. So that conflict between root stories and being rooted can be explored through creative process. And I'd like you to just sketch a little um, sense of a root story that has you trapped, and then being rooted in a healthy way, in a way where your roots can actually dive or be a deeper resource for that which is rising. So let's think about rooted and rising in the context of being alive in life and starting to discover the very source of new energy, new opportunity, and new insight, perhaps even new sense of identity. A long, long time ago, I was called to abandon a nickname that I had had for decades. It was a childhood nickname, one that I had chosen long ago, and it didn't really ever suit me, but I didn't know then that it didn't suit me. And energetically, it was really, really tied to energies that I didn't really love. And that nickname needed to take a new shape, and I adopted the new nickname and professionalized it. I shifted it into a new identity, and I embraced it for restorative healing and energy that allowed me to be rooted and rise. I abandoned the nickname that no longer served me. And yes, there were people in the world that still use that name. And it didn't bother me at all because it was much more about what I needed and what I knew to be true that allowed me to step into a new story. Identity is powerful. And if you're feeling that you are not holding the center that you want to experience in your life, if you're feeling buffeted by outside influence or by old energies, how can you shed what is no longer needed and plant yourself in a new space and allow yourself to be resourced by wisdom and choice rather than what has held you to the past or old perceptions of the self? If we truly influence others through making change from within ourselves, what could you do to choose something new for yourself that allows you to untether from an old story and be aligned? This is where you will find yourself rooting and rising. Now, in the next few weeks, we're going to actually have a masterclass series that gives you an opportunity to work with these concepts and tools every day. We're going to have a 5-day masterclass series called Rooted and Rising. So you're invited to join that for free if that's interesting to you. And it's a great opportunity to gather and really explore these insights. This is in advance of the Creative Depth program beginning in September. So I want to be fully transparent that there's a beautiful opportunity to explore foundations of depth as useful tools for everyday life. This is how I live my life. And I love sharing this work. And this is really inspired. It's a brand new masterclass series by what I see is most needed at certain junctures of life, particularly when we're feeling diminished or when we're feeling sort of caught between stories. Not that any longer, but not quite sure of what's next, and yet yearning and wanting and needing transformational change. I've had so many brilliant conversations with people lately about this, and I'm thrilled to offer a more immersive experience. But knowing where there are certain energies, emotions, or influence from the past, from past experience, that are root stories might be the beginning of reorienting yourself to what you are experiencing, what is working for you or not working for you around that experience inside your life, and how external experiences might be throwing you off course or really disrupting your sense of aligned living. I talk a lot in my work about mythic living, but mythic living is always in service to an aligned life. In fact, this exploration of a mythopoetic life is always in service to being rooted and rising, to organizing your energy around what's most important to you. And that this mythopoetic or symbolic or mythic exploration that is esoteric in nature is one of the most potent ways to discover your day-to-day experience and how to be truly aligned with who you are at a soul level. So when we talk about being rooted and rising, we're talking about the essence of the self rising to meet your potential. And that is subtle and profound all at the same time, because you can be in a quiet way doing your work in the world and meeting yourself in a very profound and meaningful way. You don't have to be out on the front lines or doing something huge, but often there's a deeper dream that is leading you in the direction of something that is dissatisfied or underexpressed. And so being rooted and rising in your own life actually allows you to step into a new way to see and be yourself. I'm 62 years old. I'll be 63 in December. I have been through lots of hard experiences in my life, through lots of trauma, lots of loss. And I've held dreams, but I've also been willing to kind of chop wood, carry water. And I have felt underutilized professionally for decades. When I embarked on determining my own direction through identity and profession, it wasn't to be bigger per se. It was to live a life that I knew was part of my destiny. And it was to be aligned with the messages that were meaningful for me. I wasn't looking to anybody else's perspective, and I didn't even know to call the work that I was embarking on rooted and rising. But that's exactly what it ended up to be, because there were so many years that I felt invisible and simultaneously sort of too big and too much. And I was a chameleon trying to figure out how I was going to fit in. So much of my early life was around belonging and not really feeling wanted. Being self-expressed as I moved into my early years included investigating how to be an artist. And I went to art school. And I was an art school dropout because I couldn't measure up. I didn't feel that it was the right fit for me. I went to the theater and became a theater designer and moved into other avenues of exploration, but nothing quite fit. And then I embarked on motherhood and being a wife and organizing a family, and really deviated from that path for a long time. And I turned my attention in different directions. You know how we live through different stages and different chapters of life. And there are certain moments in my life that I can see were pivotal doorways or thresholds where I was being invited to move through. And some of them were really hard, and some of them were very satisfying. And there were certain parts of roles and responsibilities that I absolutely loved and leaned into and was really dedicated to. And there were areas of deep dissatisfaction and sources of enormous pain that were unresolved. And those traveled with me and tangled around, my feet to kind of hold me back. They were the past stories that were unresolved. They were points of pain that were not healed, wounds that were holding onto energies, painful places. And yet I moved on and I let them just drag along with me. They became the burdens and the baggage that we all know, part of being human. And that juncture, when I changed my name, was actually a huge pivot point. It was right after a divorce. I was very much unwinding from the past and stepping into the future. And there were lots of lessons for me as I did that. But boy, that name change realigned my life. It allowed me to shift some stories and cut some cords and drop some of the baggage and adopt an identity that could allow me to move in new directions. It was the barely beginning of a new chapter. And I feel like at 62, 63, I'm in that again. There are always new chapters. I work with women in their 30s and their 50s and in their 70s and 80s. It is so exciting to work with women because we are reflections of one another and we are always rooted and rising in some kind of way, or unpacking the past and starting to release the root stories that are tripping us up. And we can see one another in our beauty, in our vulnerability, in our passion and our possibilities when we share our stories with one another. So there's nothing that I love more than gathering and creating these offerings, these events where we can actually start to embark on a bigger part of our life story. So that is the intent of this connection and me sharing some of my stories and stepping in with you to actually have a live event. So come to the masterclass series if you're inspired, if you're experiencing anything of what we're talking about. We have lots of planned and sort of woven into the process every day. We're also going to create together and use some beautiful tools. So come and see what is available to you. And I'll talk to you soon.